Hey everyone, I want to show you a couple of tried and true ways that you can learn a tricky passage. Come on, let's go. The first way that most of us approach a tricky passage is just to play it slowly. And that's always a good bet, especially if you're doing it with a metronome, and then just to speed it up as you go. And a lot of the time, this will work beautifully. Playing something slow and then gradually speeding it up, especially with a metronome, can do a wonderful job of teaching our brain and our fingers how to execute a tricky passage. But there are some passages that just don't respond to this very well. Perhaps you've practiced in a mistake early on. Perhaps your fingers are just really struggling with the move between two different notes. Maybe your embouchure isn't ready for a particular leap in the music. Or maybe the idea of playing something slow over and over and over again and gradually speeding it up is just not exciting enough to you to warrant the good use of your practice time. So it's time to get a little creative. So this first method is really common. I hope you've heard of it before. You're just going to alter the rhythm. You'll play the first note long, the second note short, the third note long, the fourth note short, etc. But to get the most that you can get out of this method, you will want to exaggerate the shortness of the short notes. Cram them up next to the long note as close as you can so that you're teaching your fingers how to move very quickly between two notes. So now you've done a great job of teaching your fingers how to move very quickly between sets of two notes throughout the passage, but it was just half of the sets of two notes throughout the passage. We need to go back and grab the other half of the passage and work it quickly as well. So we invert the rhythm, and now we're going to play short, long, short, long. All right, our next method is called chunking, or some people call it chaining. We are just going to play two notes rapidly and then three notes rapidly, 4, 5, 6, and on throughout the passage. The idea behind this is that you are teaching your fingers how to move quickly between more than just two notes at a time. So one thing you'll want to really focus on with this method is keeping your speed going the whole time. Not surprisingly, if you're doing chunking or chaining from the beginning of a passage, you end up getting really, really great at the beginning of the passage because you're repeating those first few notes many, many, many times. So we want to do the same thing, but start from the end of the passage. Now we can have a little bit more fun with it and do the same idea of chunking or chaining, but do it backwards. And now one of my all-time favorite ways to learn a passage, and that is just to start at the end of it and play it backwards. And it always ends up being this kind of strange, fun, funky, kooky, different tune than it started out as. And for some reason, that just makes my brain really happy. I hope it makes your brain happy too. So the main idea here is just to play. Maybe you want to change the rhythm completely and turn it into little galloping horses. Maybe you want to find a really hard section and just reverse uno it, backward and forward and backward and forward. Or maybe you want to chop up the measures into little bite-sized pieces and rearrange them, and then you can feel just like Stravinsky. Or how about flip your music over and see what it sounds like played upside down? I'm sure this is going to be very kooky. Really, the sky is the limit in terms of what you can do to learn a tricky passage, you can manipulate these notes in so many different ways. And along the way, you are building facility in your fingers and you're building quickness in your mind. And at the end of the day, you're going to have a very solid foundation. So when you're trying to learn a tricky passage, don't settle for just going slow and then going faster. Change it up a little bit, get creative, explore, and happy practicing.